Welcome, citizens of the globe, to the Frontend Heroes podcast, where we discuss all things villainous and heroic about the front end of software development. My name is Evan Payne. I'm a senior front-end developer at Actimo, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Scott Francis, a senior front-end engineer at Porsche. How you doing, Scott?
Yeah, really well, thanks. Excited as ever to record the podcast. And honestly, thankful it's Friday, and I actually get to stay in bed for maybe 20 minutes longer tomorrow.
Yeah, not too much longer, but 20 minutes, yeah. And even though it's been a little rainy, the weather shifting is nice as well. Getting towards, not summer, but spring, and it's pleasant.
Yeah.
So today's episode is sponsored by Netcentric, an award-winning Adobe Global Alliance partner and consultancy headquartered in Switzerland with offices all over Europe as well as in Pune, India. They're currently hiring for a number of roles in the software development kind of landscape. So if you're looking for work, check them out. We are, as ever, so glad to have their support with this show. Today we have a guest. He is an independent product designer and front-end developer from Palestine and author of the book Debugging CSS. Please welcome Ahmad Shadeed. Will you introduce yourself and tell us a bit about how you got started as a front-ender?
Sure thing. Thank you for having me. So my name is Ahmad. I started out, I think, 8 years ago. I started out as, let me say, I think in the UX thing. So I started to design logos and websites and so much on. And I think in 2014, I thought to myself, and why actually you want to learn CSS? Because I think that at that time we was working on something, and the person who actually was in charge of the HTML and CSS, he told me this bit of your design cannot actually be done in CSS. And I asked myself why. So I said, it's fine. So we can actually maybe change it to something else. So I remember that in July 2014, I started learning CSS. So I think I did a daily practice for almost 2 years. So in each day, I researched something about CSS, or maybe researching, let me say, and how to do certain things. And yes, let me say, I think a few years later, I started blogging about it, and that's actually the whole story of it.
No, that's brilliant, and that's why I suggested we invite you on the show as well, because your blog posts came to my attention. I don't remember for sure which one it was. I can maybe find it later on in the episode. But it was such a thorough breakdown of a CSS topic. And, when you're a developer, you've used this properties or these sets, but not in that sort of you really take the time on all the topics you write to really break it down, make sure you have really good examples, and your design skills shine through as well, because they're visually compelling articles as well, which really appreciate. I immediately recommended it to my team to read. I was like, you guys think you know this thing, but please check this out. You'll know it even better. That's one genesis. I think it's also really cool to hear that. I think as front-enders, we're often the ones saying to designers exactly that. We can't do that. CSS doesn't work that way. So it's nice to hear someone that said, well, I need to prove that. Let's see if that's true.
Yeah. I love that you were just so frustrated as a designer, you decided no, I'm going to find a way. And boy, did you.
How did you, you said you were studying a lot every day and you're very thorough on these, but at what point did your articles become, I don't know, I see them as sort of great reference material beyond sort of the MDN articles on these same topics. And so I wonder how you approach them, how you choose the topics to write about. We can start there and go a little further.
Okay, sure. Um, uh, at, Let me say that like picking something to write about is like most of the time it's like related maybe to either something that I'm working on, or something that I really want to dig into, or something actually that let me think that maybe I know it, but not that deep. So it's all about learning and actually taking notes of the things that I learn.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I think maybe the article that I initially came upon was last year, these CSS variables or custom properties, because I had been using them. Finally, I got free of Internet Explorer, so I felt comfortable using them, and I really liked them, but I hadn't seen a lot of use cases for really using them in depth. But you pointed out a few really clean cases
Yes.
right off the bat. Um, yeah, if you have anything further to say about specifically that. So the first one was, last October,
Okay.
I guess.
Okay. So that's. I think that I published this maybe in October, I think, and the fact that that we can actually finally get rid of IE10, like it's time to use them. So so there's actually let me say like maybe a sort of a pattern which is like most devs like use them only for the stock for saving let me say like tokens like font sizes or maybe colors and such things, but that's actually not taking the full potential of them, because we can do so much things with them. Uh, like for example, we can change a specific value. Maybe if the like maybe if the board like width is actually larger than something else, or maybe we can actually change maybe the font size of a pseudo element, by saving a variable to the parent of it, and then we can actually we can actually access like this parent, and it will be reflected on the pseudo element. So it's not only about like using them for saving things like spaces or font sizes. And actually, I wrote something maybe in the last 2 days that is only about this thing. So actually, it is titled "Practical Use Cases." So, like in this article, you'll find all sort of use cases that are not only about font sizes and colors and such things.
Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoyed that as well. Scott, I wanted to toss it to you briefly as well. Hey, have you gotten a chance to use many custom properties in your coding yet?
Do you know what? I haven't actually in projects, because I kind of feel that I was going that way, because the last project that I was in, we just before I changed jobs, we just dropped support for IE11, but I was super interested in them when I saw them, and at one point I got to do kind of an advanced class for a new group of people, new group of developers that we had in the company, and I actually took that as the opportunity to learn about CSS variables, and actually incorporated them into a lesson. I was like really, really, really pleased with like the things that I discovered, like that we could actually set the properties in the root, and then as you say, like really manipulate things like further down, like the cascade, just by changing these single properties. And I thought it was like really, really interesting use case, and it was like a pleasure to actually be able to show other people that as well. But they're definitely something that I would advocate for in the future, and I definitely think that we'll be using them in my current project.
I think the thing that stood out the most to me, which I think we as Western centric developers often forget to think about, but in your example was adding quick, easy fallback or support directly for left to right languages in the browser instead of just our normal right to left, or vice versa, RTL versus LTR.
Yes.
And that's how often I talk about it. I don't even get the terminology right. But the idea is, you can have, imagery. So you have a picture on the right and text on the left, but that looks fine to us in a certain like layout. But in the emphasis becomes on one side or the other, right? And if you set using a custom property, one of these CSS variables, if you want, use that inside the actual like background element positioning, then way up higher in the cascade, you just change a single property or add another class or whatever, and it trickles all the way down using these to the wherever it is. I love that about it the most, is that these kind of things become so much easier. Yes, it's maybe missing a little bit of if you want a framework, something to make sure you're not making mistakes. I think they develop that over time with the IDEs like VS Code. They're going to give more support for these things so you really can trace it down. But still, that it's there and you can start thinking about it already, it's just an excellent tool.
Yes.
Besides that, what is another thing that I think we're all excited about lately, and I want to get your take on it, is container queries.
Yes.
It's been a long time coming, and you wrote some stuff on this as well. What has been your take on not just why we need it, which we can for sure rehash, but how the CSS syntax actually is coming about? Like, how do you feel that is it comfortable? Is it scary? Are people going to take forever to learn once it comes out?
Okay, for me, the syntax is actually it's like very easy to let me say use. Like the first thing you need like is to define like the containable property on the parent element, and then you can like start using like at container, and then maybe min with x and so on. So I think the syntax is very clear. But let me say like if we compare it like to the media query thing, I think it's very consistent with it. So like I don't think that like it will be a confusion point or something. And that's it.
Yeah, your article was actually my first introduction to it. I read that the other day. And I think like it does look really straightforward to use. It does look like something that we can all get on board with. But as Evan said, like we've been waiting around for it for a long time, so it's like really pleasing to see that it's finally happened, and we can kick some JavaScript out that was perhaps doing that for us before, and get it into the CSS, which is like super nice.
Yes, I think there is I think that now like we have like we have a polyfill polyfill which can actually be used like I think this will help like let me say in the adoption like of this. So instead like of waiting maybe until 1 or 2 years, like we can use it now and to so I think this will make things much easier.
Yeah, I had given a talk last year at one point just for a meetup, but also it's the only video I have on my YouTube channel, and so it has a bunch of views because it's the only video.
Mhm.
But in there, I'm talking about Svelte, and Svelte has this thing that made it really trivial to implement a container query within, and it's using JavaScript, of course, but it was just they have a sort of like resize observer built into every component, or you can switch it on for every component. And then if it resizes, it will change a CSS class, which you can then use the custom properties to cascade through and change, etc. So you don't write the actual media query, but it's JavaScript. But the idea is that the JavaScript can be very lightweight to implement what a container query really is, which
Yes.
is to say, hey, what's the size of my parent? If it's this, I want to run this CSS. If it's this, I want to run this
Mhm.
CSS. Same as
Mhm.
what is the browser with a media query. If it's this, I want to run this versus this. So the CSS or the JavaScript being so lightweight means that a polyfill is an excellent thing. I forget the guy's name. I'm terrible about looking these things up in advance, but I remember Scott Talinsky did a video just a few days ago on this released polyfill that people like Miriam Suzanne like very
Mhm.
much endorse, and it looks like a good start. So
Yes. I think the name is Jonathan Nail.
that's right.
He actually, I can actually provide a link like for you to check it out, like
Yeah,
in the chat. Here we
yeah,
go.
we'll add it in the show notes.
Yes.
Cool.
Very good. I I really think it's an exciting time, and Scott will remember at our company that we worked at together previously, we had one year Rachel Andrew come and speak to us about CSS Grid, um, and this feels like the same thing. Like Rachel Andrew had pushed to get CSS Grid adopted and get it like cross-browser standardized and all of that, and it feels like the same thing has happened here with again Miriam Suzanne
Yes.
and container queries, and it's just the best. And we're waiting for like a couple of other small things, and then yay, we're all good.
Yes. 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 I think like um, this thing will actually change how we design for the web because like when we like design, let me say maybe like a card component. So like we used to maybe have like up maybe to five variations of it, but with container queries we can actually contain like like every variation for a specific width, which is um, like uh, which is really amazing. So يعني يعني I really like this thing, and I think Miriam asked like a question maybe yesterday or the day before, which was actually like if we blessed if we blessed a component like in a parent that actually doesn't have doesn't have the contain what will happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the first answer was like it will default to the viewport size, which is I think bad. The second one,
Yeah, I don't think that works.
I cannot actually recall this, but the right thing to do was actually um, maybe to design a component to be mobile first, and then whatever
Mm-hmm.
happens, it cannot be, let me say, that bad. So that's actually
Yeah,
my thought process.
I think that's great. I always reminds me of kind of the first front end conference I went to was in Italy, and I saw Jeremy Keith was speaking, and he
Mhm.
was talking about how I'm sure I've mentioned this in the show before as well, Scott. So sorry, or listeners, sorry, but he was mentioning that the web is resilient, and the idea is that HTML works because it's a resilient language. If you type something wrong, it doesn't fall apart like JavaScript can,
Mhm.
and it's also responsive by its nature,
Yes.
with the exception of like images and like one other thing. It is already mobile first. So this would just be reinforcing that. And to all the people that don't write their code mobile first, well, yeah, you'll now have one more hurdle to jump over to make it do what you want it to within these container query fallbacks.
Something that I'd like to ask though is like you putting your designer hat on. So you're like now back in the design world. We have container queries. How quick to adopt like new CSS things like this is the design community? Are they just as aware of new things that are coming out, and do they get as excited as the developers? Because for sure we see opportunity, but if we're presented by designs from a design team and they're not incorporating like container sizes, then
Mhm.
then pretty much we know that it's there, but we don't get to implement it because there's no call for it from the designers. So, in general, do you remember the design community being like in touch with CSS so much?
Um, that actually depends like on the person. But let me say, like generally speaking, like the most designers like I have ever worked with, like I have like did with them things in the past, like have let me say like a very basic CSS knowledge. So it's actually a bit rare, like to find someone who is like who knows CSS as like equal like to his design skills and so.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, like, do you
Mhm.
think that they kind of seem like natural partners to me? So, like, do you think that perhaps of all the disciplines that we have as front enders, that designers really should like know the capabilities? And do you think that that's like something that would come into play more in the future, like as a requirement for being a designer, that you would be aware of these things? Because it seems to me like they're really useful tools in the toolbox, but then if you don't actually know that they're there, then do you ever reach for them?
Uh, yes, I think uh, let, let me say at least like for me, the best thing I actually did is like learning is like learning CSS because let me say like before that like when like I'm working on something, it's like everything is possible. So you actually don't have maybe limits or maybe let me say boundaries or something. And when it comes like to someone who will actually code this, at this stage, he will say that this thing can't be actually done in CSS, and this thing and this thing. So you will like you will end like you will end up like taking more time and taking maybe more I think I think يعني, it's about like taking more time like to fix all of these things and then come back with them. So that process is actually very very bad, at least for me. And what I see good is that like if you know CSS, at least like very basic skills, it will help you a lot in like designing like something that can actually work instead of like thinking that this is actually possible and it will be not possible. And there is also
Mm-hmm.
one point um, that I actually got asked about is that when you when you design something and you are actually the person who will do the CSS, will you actually design like a more simple design like to save time and maybe to make it easy for you, or will you will or like will you actually forget that you will like code this in CSS. So my answer to this is that like when I'm designing something, let me say like a web page, and like I'm the person who will do the CSS. At this stage, I like to forget that I actually do CSS, because sometimes you want to
Yeah.
have like a bit of challenges, like in your like in your work or something.
Yeah. I think there's two sides of this, right? So the one is that in the past, those there has been a cycle of abuse, perhaps, right? Where designer comes to the table with these beautiful things and the front ender goes, I can't do that with CSS. It doesn't work that way. And then the designer goes, oh, I'll never do that again now. And then, a year goes by and the front ender's like, remember that thing you did? We can totally do that now. And like
Yes.
the designer hasn't done it in the meantime because they got scared off of that. So that's
Mhm,
one
mhm,
side of the coin. The other one, though, is that the design tools themselves are getting better, right? You're not having to do stuff in Photoshop or even Illustrator
mhm,
anymore, where it's maybe too much of a anything goes kind of canvas. Now, if you're able to use Figma or Sketch or whatever it might be, they're building limitations that are not the web, but closer and closer to it. And it's not WYSIWYG, like heaven forbid, it's not that,
mhm,
but there's high hopes that they will, especially with container queries, provide some easy tools. So you just, as a designer, have the resizable outer container, which I think is already in a lot of them,
mhm,
and your designs change appropriately. You have a variable size font baked into there. And so if you want that as a designer, you can use it in your design tool. That's for me the key is then the front enders don't have to tell you, the software allows you.
mhm, mhm. Yes, yes, I think that this is actually a very good point. So, like when you design in Figma or in Sketch, yes, like you will have limitations, which is actually very different. Like from Photoshop, which is actually is not like is not a, like is not like a tool for um, uh, like such things. Mhm,
Yeah. Yeah. I think as well, like we're entering an age where all of these tools are breeding more tools. The one that always comes to mind, which people hate lately, or rather, it is one of those things where it's gotten a little out of control, but I still love it, is Tailwind. I'm interested in seeing what you think of Tailwind, but the reason I bring it up is because it is based very highly on top of extensive use of custom properties.
mhm,
And you have your configuration that populates the sort of top level custom properties and allows you to trickle these colors down to various properties with
mhm,
you know efficiency. But
mhm.
what's been your experience with it?
Okay, so that's a good question. So for Tailwind, I think that I have used it in a very quick landing page, and I remember that I built it in almost 2 hours, which is actually will be maybe like a one full day. If like I want to write a custom CSS, but like I don't think that Tailwind CSS is for is for me at least, because like I like to write custom CSS, and I like to have control. Let me say of like everything, and the idea of like writing classes like in the HTML. So I think that I have shared I shared something maybe in the last month. I was I think inspecting something, and I noticed maybe over 30 classes, like the half of them is for LTR and the other half is for RTL. And that actually idea is using CSS classes in the HTML like is very confusing because like let me say at some time you will actually be confused of by like maybe of maybe recalling like what is this element is and what like does it think.
Yeah.
يعني it's like a very confusing thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and actually when I mention that to someone who like is using Tailwind, he will always say like you can use a class and you can use the at apply, and I say that yes, that I actually know that, but I don't think that this is a selling point for me.
I again, I've totally drank the Kool-Aid, so it's not that like but I do think that that is totally fine and it's fair. I don't
Sure.
like this habit that people have of saying, but maybe you're thinking of this, or maybe you forgot about this because you like the tool. You don't need to jump all over people that don't like the tool.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, it's absolutely fine, and there's of course going to be arguments to sort of counteract. But I think the only thing I would say is that it's better used with some frameworks where you break things into components so that you have ease of recognition of repeating
Yes.
patterns. If you're just doing stuff in basic HTML, that is overwhelming for sure. Anyway.
Yes, yes, like me.
I love,
Scott, save me.
I love that Ahmed is like a craftsman with his CSS, and he's like, no, 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 no. I noticed as soon as you said Tailwind, he took a
Yeah.
big deep breath.
Yeah. That's why I asked. I like, I'm absolutely aware that it's, not the most
It's
popular
totally fine.
opinion.
And I think there is also one thing is that I notice is like most of the new CSS comers will actually jump to Tailwind without actually learning how CSS work. So I don't think that um, um, like using CSS classes is the best way to learn CSS, because when you actually want to work on something custom, you cannot just maybe add a mp-2 or something like this. You actually have to know يعني, you have to use
Mm,
CSS or something. And I think there is also one point which is like I don't have to wait to use like like to use a new CSS feature, because
mm,
it's like waiting for the team like to release maybe let me
sure.
see a CSS update or something. So this is actually like one of the points that I also don't like about it.
Yeah, and that's fair. And look,
Mhm.
people are also going to jump all over me for not counteracting, but I'm not going to do it. One of the examples, though, and because I'm going to segue us now, one of the examples of things that maybe don't get implemented right away is logical properties, which I think is another cool new thing that's coming to CSS.
Um, mm.
Brief intro for that is the idea of, instead of writing, border left, you write something else like border inside, is it? Um,
Yes, so it will be like border. Like border left is actually border inline end. So it's like having the start. So in like LTR, we have the start on the right and we have the end on
mhm.
the left. So when we say like border left, it is actually like saying border inline left. So when we actually use this, like it will flip past on the direction of the page.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. I did not know that.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that's coming soon to CSS, and it is brilliant. And that's that you don't have to clutter your code with the custom properties trick, which is great, but because you just say, hey, no, I want this to be at the start or the end of the flow, as you're reading it, and
Mhm.
that means it can, whatever the browser says is the current reading direction, it'll just kind of cascade down via these properties. I think that is really cool. And
Yes.
yeah, again, you have a good explainer article kind of going through some of those as well, I think,
Mhm.
right?
Yes. Yes.
Nice. Last thing I want us to talk about, I guess, is your book. Um, can you just give us an overview of what is in there, and maybe why people should check it out? I haven't yet, so.
Yes, okay, sure thing. So actually, the book, let me say, it is focused like on the most common CSS issues that you will actually face, while testing, or like why like maybe like if you actually maybe want to break something to test that if it actually will work or not. So if I want to break the book down, the first thing is that I wrote that an introduction about it. So and the second chapter is actually about CSS. Let me say types. So like in CSS, like we don't have like a clear way to see like if something that isn't working. And I think then I went into into dev tools, and like how we can actually use them, and how we can actually get benefit of them. And
Hmm.
then we will work you through some of the most common CSS issues. I think this chapter alone is almost 200 pages, so it's a very large one.
There are a
Um,
lot of common
yes,
issues.
and then there is actually there is a chapter on how to on like how to break things. So you will actually sometimes like you need to test maybe a specific layout or a specific web page, and you want to see how it will act for, like if we add maybe a very long text or something. And then it's actually about browser inconsistency. And that's actually the whole let me see outline of it. Um, and also one thing is that the book it's for all levels. So if you are an if you have been writing maybe CSS for the last for maybe the last 10 years, it will still maybe get you to know something. And that's actually the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I I think it's a great resource for the community. I know based on your articles that it is well written. I can't imagine you not putting the same quality and care into it as you have with your others, and they really are. I mean, your stuff is fantastic. So please keep
Thank
doing
you.
what you're doing
Yeah,
there.
yeah, it really
Thank you
is.
so much.
I'd really like to echo that because I've been reading your articles, and I'm to be honest, I'm staggered at the amount of articles, like
Yeah,
the amount of topics that you get through, like the consistent quality, and it's just it staggers me to be honest that you can find the time to put so many articles out. So really, like kudos to you, like really, really well done. Like Keep it up.
Thank you so much, Scott. Thank you.
All right, so we're getting a little bit towards the end of the show. First, we want to go through our segment, True Hero. In this segment, we like to highlight a few true front-end heroes that are working across the planet and to thank them for all that they do. This time around, you recommended for us a fellow named Brahmas Van Dam. He's at Twitter at Brahmas. Will you tell us a bit about him and why you're recommending him for True Hero?
Sure thing. Okay, so Brahmos actually covers like the latest CSS things in like a very clear way. So for like for example, he covered scroll linked animations, and he really went deep into that topic. And like I cannot like recall like if someone has written on this, but his work on this topic is like the best thing because he did a lot of demos and things like that. So and also beside this, let me say that I really like the way that like he writes things. So like his blog like will contain let me say some tips and tricks and some also let me say like maybe edge cases, and that's actually what I really like about like his way like of writing things.
Yeah, it's brilliant. So we'll link in the show notes as well. Check out his work. And again, thank you for all that you do for the community.
Thank you so much.
Finally, good. Finally, any proper hero is a well-rounded one. And so we'd like to share some simple musical audio picks. So Scott, what's the favorite thing you've been listening to lately?
Catalan nursery rhymes.
Okay.
My kids have been listening to a lot of Catalan nursery rhymes, and I've found myself like suddenly singing along to them. But
the expat version of Mozart for babies, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, check it out. Cogol Trail Banya is an amazing nursery rhyme.
Okay.
No, like actually, I've listened to virtually nothing new this month. But I have gone back to my old favourite, Bob Dylan, and been listening to Blonde on Blonde a few times. So I would recommend that if there is anyone in the world who has not heard Blonde on Blonde by Bob Dylan, then they should probably listen to it. So that would be my pick.
Awesome. Thanks. Ahmad, what about you?
Okay, so for me, I listened to the Laracast podcast lately, and I really like how like it is. It's like very short and also it's very focused.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's good. I mean, Laracast it's a whole different topic. It's a little too back-endy PHP stuff for me, but it's good stuff. From my side, I'm going to go really crazy and also recommend a podcast, but it's very heavily musical based, and it's called I Only Listen to the Mountain Goats. So there's a band called the Mountain Goats. There's another podcast called Welcome to Night Vale, and the host of Welcome to Night Vale interviews or co-hosts this podcast with the lead singer, writer, of the Mountain Goats, and they just talk about one song at a time of one of the Mountain Goats' early albums. And they bring on like guest performers to do covers like Andrew Bird or Amanda Palmer, and they talk with them about the sound and mixing. It's really, you'd think it would be like super high arrogance on the Mountain Goat dude's part, but it's not. He's really down to earth. He's really intellectual and smart, and music's not for everyone. I don't think like anyone would actually say I only listen to Mountain Goats, but they'd be a weirdo if they did because it's weird music. But it's enjoyable. I've been doing that on my walks, and breaking down music like Song Exploder is pretty cool. So shout out to them.
And now we're going to go and listen to the Mountain Goats.
I'm sure you are. Yeah. I guess start with All Hail West Texas if you want, if I have to recommend one of their albums too. It's a good place. Right. So it looks like that's all the time we have for today, folks. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, you should like, heart, or star us in your podcatcher of choice. Reviews and ratings are how those fancy algorithms help people find our content, and the power to help is within you. If you have any questions or topics you'd like covered in our next episode, or guests you might think we would have a good time interviewing, send us a tweet at Heroes Frontend, and we'll add it to our list. Until next time, heroes, remember, with great front-end power comes great responsibility. See you next time.